My name is Justin Ancheta with SF Garnish Music Production and Soul Graffiti Studios. We're going to be talking to you guys about Ableton Live 11 Suite today, and specifically the instruments that are inside of Ableton Live 11 Suite, how you can create your own simpler, your samplers, and what's the difference between the two. All right, and this is for West Coast Wednesdays. That's right. Every Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month, every first Wednesday of the month in 2022, 2023, we have our classes going on every month at SF Garnish in the studio, Boutique Studio, Soul Graffiti Studios, and online. Contact us ASAP if you guys want to check it out. Go to our Beer and Beats on Tuesdays. And we have a track going on right now that I created with Fred Doumbé on bass, and we're going to use this just as some backing tracks, and we're going to try put some different instruments inside this track. Let's go ahead and just listen to this a little bit. Let's zoom in a little bit. All right. So that's the track right there. And we're just going to kind of keep this volume kind of low for now, so that we can kind of talk over the top. And if you guys have questions, please email us, sf@Garnish Music Production. We'd be happy to answer your questions. Like I said before, we're a boutique learning facility for electronic music production. And today, I'm going to get into tracking not only instruments such as the bass, but being able to do any type of sound, and then be able to put that onto your MIDI device. Currently, I have the Push 2 in front of me, which Ableton creates, but you could also put this into your MPK Mini. Anything portable is super helpful, having a keypad in front of you or some display. I don't know if you guys can see this if I bring it up, but that's the Push 2. Really nice flat device. What's great about it too is it has the sliding for pitch, and all the instruments and things inside Ableton is super helpful and easy to access with the Push 2. So here we are in the Push in Ableton, and we're looking at the bass track. Now we have other tracks here that are MIDI bass, and then we have some MIDI drums. Just go through these all. These are all MIDI, and then we have some that are actually recorded as well. You can see the recorded ones because there's WAV files on them, right? This vocal, this little beatbox here that happens. Really important thing is to name stuff up front, what they are, so that you can really get into it and have these show up properly, right? This says voice 2 Marin Redkey, and that's not the case. So let's listen to this really quick, soloing that. All right, so that's what we have there. So instead of that being there, I'm going to say this is like a beatbox, whisper, right? It's kind of going through the whole song. And if I name that up front, this would name it right away instead of having to rename these. I won't worry about that right now, but just a heads up that order of operations is super helpful. These are also MIDI tracks right here. Sorry, audio tracks, because they have the waves. Electric guitar, acoustic guitar. Got some wah in there. Now this is the part where you can take a recorded instrument and you can change it into your own sample and play it with your hand instead, right? Play it on the fretboard or play it with your MIDI device. Today, let's go ahead and make something new up. I'm going to make a percussion sound. So I'm going to go into this percussion zone. It looks like this percussion zone is in my vocal track and not down in percussion yet. Drum and bass. Let's go ahead and bring this drum and bass. Organize this to the right location. Now this might change the volume of how loud it is in the mix, and specifically the gain structures, right? This is at negative 6.9. My head's in the way, so you guys can, let me change where my head is. Right here, negative 6.9, right there. And what we want to do is go ahead and make sure that our voice is at 0, right? So this is also at 0. So this should be about the same gain structure. Another thing to take into consideration if you take a group out like that is what effects are on here, right? Looks like there's a frequency sweep, but that actually is just open right now, right? These are both open. And there's this compressor. Do I have that same compressor on down here? Drum bus? No, I don't. So that's going to change how it sounds in the mix. Now that we have that in the right location, I'm going to go ahead and go Command T, and it will just drop it right below the highlighted area. And I'm going to name this right away. Oh, looks like my screen froze, you guys. I've been having trouble with my device. So what I'm going to do now is just change it to a new one. Hopefully this can work for y'all. There we go. All right, let's take that one out. And bring this one in. Okay, guys, I'm still here with you. New camera. Don't fall over. Okay, so still here. I just went from my T5i camera. For some reason, it keeps turning off on me. And now I'm using Irian. Yada, yada. Technology. Okay, we're back in here again. I'm going to name this mouth pop. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and put a few of these in. And I'm going to record on the channel. That is my vocal mic that I'm using right here to talk to you guys, right? It's a nice vocal mic right there. All right. For all of you guys that don't know who this is End the Wars. It's Ann and Joel, Handmade Moments' next album. You guys should go check it out. Great duo group. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start with the pops anywhere in the mix, but I'll just start from the beginning. Just to make sure that I don't record anywhere else, I'm going to just solo record. So that's just the recorded channel. Pressing the record button on my push 2, or you can press it up here on your computer. And I'm just going to go from the very beginning, turning on the click track. Let's make sure it's in the right cue out. Okay, you guys will hear this as well. Okay, so when I zoom in here, you can kind of see where these came out pretty quick. This had a lot of slap on my cheek. I don't know if I want that, but I have some options here. Slap here, or these smaller ones. It might be like raindrops. Let's go ahead and just put some reverb on this right away to kind of get that raindrop effect. All right, so once you have just one that you really like, You can essentially go in and make this your own sample by just highlighting that area. Command-Shift-R. And now when you're in your render mode, you want to make sure that it's in the highest fidelity, not MP3, but waveform. And you can turn this into convert to mono, because it is going to be a mono. I'm going to say master because I have this soloed, but you could actually render just the mouth pop itself from this dropdown. But I'm going to do the master, and I'm going to say render as loop, because I know that this is going to be a loop. And what this will do is I'm going to bring this into a track area that I'm creating samples. Justin Sounds, drum 1 hits. All right. And this is going to be mouth pop drip. Okay. 01. Okay, so that just rendered very quickly. We have that now. Now that we have that, I can go in and create something a little different. So I'm going to take this off, take off listening to this, and I'm going to go Command-Shift-T. This is creating a MIDI track. Okay, and in the MIDI track, this is where you can come in and use Simpler. So I actually have Simpler up here in my instruments right away. It's just a simple way to drag and drop basic Simpler. There's no sample in here yet down below. So I'm going to go ahead and open up where I was, Splice, Justin Sounds, 1 hits, and I said mouth pop. Okay, I drag and drop this, which is a very small 72 kilobyte file. And right away, noticing it's a pretty quiet loop. That's something I probably should have brought up in volume a little bit. I can just bring up the volume here on the Simpler, and it's essentially now on my pad. Okay. So let's go ahead and bring this up in volume. And trying out some different filters on here. All right, so if I'm playing this, I really want to make sure that this is in, I just got into my preferences, by the way. Command comma is the shortcut code. I want to make sure that there's no latency, so I'm going to bring this to 128 samples. The very lowest it could probably be without distortion. And the overall latency right here, just going to make sure that this is as close as possible to 0 milliseconds, right? There we go. So that's pretty good. So now that we are in this, that first track was really just here to create the sound initially. We can go ahead and zero that out. For some reason, every time I press 0, it goes to a blank screen. Sorry, guys. All right, here we go. So instead of playing it on my cheek, I'm going to go ahead and I have control of the pitch. And this is using Simpler, right? All right. So just a sample of being able to kind of roll my hand, right, across. And that roll, right, essentially is taking something that I can't quite roll on my cheeks, but I can do it on the instrument much better, right? So this is a great example of being able to utilize the MIDI simpler device to create an instrument. So now that I didn't play it totally in time. So on the push, I'm holding down quantize. And what I like to do is put my swing amount to about 14 and quantize amount, just bring it to like 90. So it's going to put a little bit more in time and swing a little bit. And that just did that on the track. If you want to look at that now, it's all of these, right? All of these moved. So let's go ahead and just listen to that. Dropping a basic utility in here. So I can just hear a little bit more volume. So what you're hearing is that stuttering effect is an actual throw that's happening on the track. If you want to listen to any stuttering effects like that, you can press A for automation to see that. And then you can kind of see where it's happening. I have everything going through this track right here, and this is the automation, right? So if I zoom in, that's where it's stuttering. I think I might want to keep that even higher. So this, I will just delete portions. There we go. The question is how much stutter do we want? This is a spot where I feel like dropping the stutter and placing it when those pops come might be nice. So. Great. All right, so I'm pretty much stuttering everything through this effects all channel. That is a lot. Like sometimes you might want to just stutter just the pop that I was doing. So you essentially put this effect of this beat masher onto that channel specifically. If you did that on every channel, it'd be a lot of processing going on. But you can always freeze tracks as well to save on some processing time. So that is simpler. Essentially any sound that you create, like I was just hitting my cheek, they can become an instrument. As simple as that. I want to do a drum sample option as well. So if you have a beatbox that you essentially like, which was this right here, and it was a loop. So I want to take this loop and render that. So another way to make sure it's the right, like a good volume, just remember what this is, right? And now it's negative 6.9. I'm going to double click that, it goes back to 0. It's going to be louder. And I'm going to go Command Shift Render. This is going to be loop on, and this is Beatbox Whisper 01. Groove. All right, we already are on one hits. Actually, this is not a one hit, this is essentially a loop. So maybe I'll put this in beat loops, and it's at 120 BPM. BPM. All right, pretty quick and simple to render out these samples, but the benefit of it is that it's going to be less space working with this track. If I took this and I could drop this right into an instrument, but if the sample's longer, it's going to be processing from that longer sample and taking more of your CPU. So better just to kind of cut it shorter. Now, let's go ahead and do what I want to do. Command Shift T, new MIDI track. And I'm just going to go right in here and go to Instruments. Actually, how about drums? A lot of different drums already in here. What I want to get in here is just the basic drums rack. Let's see here. I mean, I could actually just take it from something that I like. Drum rack. Okay, I'll just take this one. So this is one that I've liked, put it into my favorites. If you're not using favorites yet, check out favorites in Ableton 10 or above. Has this option. Now this drum rack already has a lot of stuff here to here. Now what we want to do is put our own stuff in. So we're going to go into our beats, and we just brought in this Beatbox Whisper. Now how many Beatbox Whispers do we need? The answer is as many different sounds that I created in that. And this is the ability to now digitally play that beatbox back. Okay, so let's go ahead and just start here. And we're going to rename this Beatbox Whisper MIDI, and let's turn this to solo. All right, so right away I noticed that the transposition is +4. We're going to just zero that back out, and we want this just to be one hit. So I'm just going to go to that first hit and allow it to be right in there, and I'm going to zoom in by getting in there and then scrolling down through. And you want to be as precise as possible to the front of the hit and give yourself as much space after. Okay, the fade out is also helpful to have that be nice and clean. Now, great. So this is something that actually I might want to put into simpler and actually have that pitch shift come in handy, right? But you also have transposition as an option. Okay, our next hit. So this is going to be beat hit 01. Every time I press 1, it fades on OBS. I'll have to change that. Now, once again, we're going to go to our next hit now. and zoom in and do the exact same thing again. Fading out, bring the volume up. Wow, very squeaky. Interesting sound. Now this last one, we might need a few more actually, based on how many different sounds I made, but it's often about 3, honestly. Zooming in one more time. Fade out. All right, and making sure that these are all double click and your transposition goes back to 0. Okay, pressing tab to get back in here. I'm just going to go ahead and try this last one to see if there's any other thing that I'm missing at all. So as this loads up, we're just going to listen to this. All right, there is one more. The k sound. Let's just see where that is. There's a higher one too. Fading out. That's it. I feel like that one right there isn't the right hit. Let's try this next one over here. All right, so in repeat mode, this is a great way to go into being in time, right? Okay, now you can essentially start digitizing that backing, okay? So let's go ahead and play along to the track now. Pretty sporadic on that take. Gonna press quantize one more time to that feel that I wanted. Cutting out things I don't like. All right, so you have the digital version and then the other version as well. You can also start panning these, right? So, and maybe the pan only happens in the very beginning of the track. So starting right here and going right, and this part right here, well, we have nothing else, we'll go left on that one. All right, so what we just did is we took that beatbox and we brought that into our drum sounds here, brought them in on pretty much this drum rack. If I wanted to save this somewhere and have that for future reference, I would press save and I would say beatbox whisper 01. All right, so I have beatbox whisper 01. And it didn't save, did it? Oh, it did. 015, because I was just trying to get that to come back, my screen. Funny, funny. Okay, and I press that, right click and press drums. Right now it saves to my drums area, so it's in my beatbox whisper. Should be up here, and it's in, yeah. So if I ever want to get back into there it is for me. And essentially, I would probably want to build this out so that I would, you know, have just, instead of these 4 here, I would have, you know, all the sounds that I want that go with it. Okay, instead of just the random things that I have down here. Okay, so we went through simpler today. We went through doing a drum rack. And noticing how samples are dropped into simpler. It's a very simple way to sample. So we also have operator, and these are just for kind of built-in sound effects. You can test them out, right? Just as long as your headphone is set up over here and your output for your headphone is listenable. It's a good starting point. So I want to be able to do that. Let's bring that in. Command Shift T. And we're going to drop this right into a new MIDI track, right? So operator works within MIDI track. Pretty much everything does other than when you're doing an audio track and recording something direct. So let's go ahead, and listen to this. Funny, we're still in our beatbox. Let's go ahead and change our instrument. Awesome. Let's bring that into our track. All right, so all of those movements that I did, essentially when it turns red, it's going to be showing you how that moves, right? You can see that as I move my cursor, those different macros are changing. Okay, I didn't quite like that specifically. Let's go ahead and try some new sounds out. Just go ahead and delete that. like the panning of that. Now what pitch is that? Look at that, it's a drum rack as a matter of fact. So this is a great example, is you can learn something just by dropping something in, is that these are, right? Each one of these is operators dropped into a rack, a drum rack, okay? I wish it was named a little bit better here. They all just say operator, but it's fine. We can get through this. Cool. I like the delay of that. Let's try this out. Getting some distortion here. Cool. So if you're having distortion like that, this is where your sample rate now, in listening back, you can go to 20, 10, 24 sample rate. Okay. If you're just beginning in Ableton, if this is over your head, don't worry about it. There's plenty of classes we have to get you going on Ableton. Go to sf.garnishmusicproduction.com. And these sounds were a little bit too much for that part of the song, I thought, but we can essentially move that anywhere, right? So this is where some automation might be nice. Instead of using my volume, I'm just going to go and bring a utility in. This just really cleans up in post-production. You can, you want to mix. Oops, that's not utility. You want to mix separately and bring volumes around. So go ahead and use the utility instead. Show your automations, and this is going to be a fade. It starts off really low, builds up to that pause where the bass happens, builds up, and then slowly comes back down after that. A little bit too much there, but as you see here, we're customizing the audio. But really, we're just taking the attack out and we're bringing in that distortion and the delay. All right, so we're just gonna have that cut right there to the end. And I'll bring this back up in case we play again. If you have this volume down, sometimes you're like, why aren't we hearing our MIDI? And it's because you have some automations, taking your dB down, your volume. All right, I hope you learned something here today. If you just joined us, you can always repeat this little lesson that we did on our YouTube channel, SF Garnish Music. Please check out and like and subscribe to our social media pages. And we have a bunch of stuff for you guys. So please click on all that below. And I hope that I see you guys in the near future. My name is Justin Ancheta with SF Garnish Music Production and Soul Graffiti Studios. We're here doing audio design, mixing and mastering with you guys. And today we went through using simpler drum racks and then even putting operator into a drum rack to do some basic sound effects in post-production on a mix of a new groove tune with Fred Doumbé. If you like what you hear and see, please check out justinanchetaband.com and go to sf.garnishmusicproduction.com to get all of your need to knows around music production. Have a great rest of your day, y'all.